They tried to shatter her with a hammer, but instead they awakened something unbreakable. Bleeding on the hangar floor, Lieutenant Mara Voss rose when every rule said she shouldn't. They spread rumors, tried to erase her, even sabotaged her mission, but steel doesn't fear the fire. And tonight, you'll see why the one they tried to destroy became the one they could never control. Let's go to the story. The hammer came down without warning. Not a stumble, not a mistake. A deliberate, brutal arc, metal meeting bone with a crack sharp enough to slice the air inside the hangar. For a split second, even the morning light seemed to freeze. The sound wasn't just loud, it was final, the kind of noise that rearranges the world around it. Lieutenant Mara Voss staggered, the ground tilted. Her ears rang like a flare detonated beside her skull. The floor felt colder than it ever had before, slick with oil, dust, and now the thin smear of her blood mixing into something dark, something reflective, something ugly. The men who struck her froze. Not out of guilt, out of disbelief. Because she was supposed to fall. But she didn't. Mara planted her hand on the concrete and pushed up, slow at first, then steady. Her eyes found the one still holding the hammer. She didn't speak. She didn't snarl. She let the silence speak for her, the silence of someone whose body refused to surrender even when logic said it should. A thin red line traced her temple, sweat cut through it like water sliding over steel. For the first time since sunrise, the entire hangar held its breath. No one knew if they were witnessing the breaking of a soldier or the beginning of something they should fear. Wait, before I continue, answer this in the comments. What would you do in this situation? Strength, she thought, isn't something you claim, it's something you become. And that moment, the moment she rose when she should have stayed down, became the beginning of the story that would echo months later in a debrief room lit by cold fluorescent lights. But before any of that, she felt the first sting. The locker room smelled like rust and salt, the kind of scent that lives in old pipes and unspoken memories. Mara pressed gauze to her scalp. The pain bloomed sharp, clean, honest. Pain had always been an old friend, one who delivered truth without apology. She didn't flinch. The mirror above the utility sink caught the faint tremor in her fingers. She ignored it, focusing instead on the angle of the tape, the pressure, the order of steps she'd practiced 100 times alone in worse places. Control wasn't a word, it was a trained muscle. Outside, voices drifted through the corridor, low, sharp, threaded with the kind of laughter that travels behind backs. Then the door slammed, leaving her in silence. Red water spiraled into the drain. Clear water followed. Protocol told her to report what happened. Survival told her not yet. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't misjudgment. This was a message wrapped in cowardice. She'd seen it coming in the way men looked at her during briefings, the half-second smirks, the delayed orders, the quiet conversations that dissolved the moment she entered the room. Hold on, don't just watch. Type the first word that came to your mind after seeing this part. Men like Rhodes always mistook her silence for weakness. So she said nothing, not to him, not to command, not even to herself. Hold on, don't just watch. Type the first word that came to your mind after seeing this part. She taped the last edge of gauze, pulled her collar straight, and stepped back into the corridor, her footsteps echoing like the slow, steady countdown to something they would all regret ignoring. Rumors don't need volume to destroy someone. Just repetition. The whispers started small. A missed radio call. A misfiled report. Little things, forgettable things. But Rhodes made them memorable. She's been off since the accident, he'd say softly, like he was concerned. Head injuries linger. Every word a seed. Every nod a confirmation. Doubt spreads quietly like rot. Before long, command officers watched her with the pity reserved for soldiers they think are slipping. Her assignments changed. Access codes flagged for review. Meetings shifted without her name on the roster. Even old teammates avoided her eyes. Isolation isn't always loud. Sometimes it's procedural. Mara watched it all. Not emotionally, scientifically. Like a sniper watching wind. She didn't correct him. Didn't challenge him. Didn't push back. She logged everything. Who spoke to whom? Who avoided her? Which conversations cut short when she stepped in? Command didn't see what she saw. They preferred order, even false order, over confrontation. Better to believe she was unstable than admit one of their own was sabotaging her. She was alone, but she had been alone before. And Mara Voss had never broken in solitude. Late at night, she went to the gym. Silence hung above the weights like a thin, humming ghost. She wrapped her hands again and again until the tape bit into her raw skin. The bandage near her temple pulsed with every heartbeat, but she welcomed the sensation. Pain was feedback. Pain was proof she was still here. The air smelled of iron and sweat, her kind of cathedral. She moved like a machine rediscovering purpose. Deadlifts, presses, controlled breathing. Heat blooming in her chest like a furnace coming alive. Every rep melted frustration. Every breath carved clarity. Every clang of metal hammered her focus sharper. When she looked at her reflection, the dim red lights cut her face into hard lines and shadows. She didn't recognize weakness. She didn't recognize fear, just a steady flame that had survived every storm. And then she thought it. Not loud. Not triumphant. Just true. Steel breaks only when it turns cold. So I'll stay burning. Those words became her new code. By the time she left the gym, sweat slicked the ground behind her like a trail of resolve. Her body trembled, her mind hardened. She was done waiting. Done absorbing blows. Done letting someone else define her edges. Now she would move with precision. Not revenge, alignment. The same alignment she used when calibrating weapons that never failed. That night, something inside her clicked into place, something quiet, lethal, beautiful. And the men who tried to break her had no idea that the steel they struck wasn't weakening. It was forging. The sunlight outside the hangar was softer than she expected, not the harsh, blinding kind that burns your eyes, but the quiet kind that warms metal after a long winter. It stretched across the tarmac in long gold ribbons, touching everything with the same honesty she had come to live by. Voss paused at the threshold, not to look back, because she didn't need to, but to let the warmth cross her face. The breeze carried the distant roar of jets, the clatter of tools, the heartbeat of a base coming to life. Familiar, steady, constant. For the first time in months, she felt those sounds reach her without distortion. Not filtered through suspicion, not colored by doubt, just the world as it was. Alive. Moving. Waiting. A figure approached her from the far end of the tarmac, Commander Halden, hands behind his back, expression unreadable. He stopped a few feet away, giving her the respectful space she had earned the hard way. "Lieutenant," he said, voice low, steady, "your reassignment has been approved." She didn't ask to where. Didn't ask why. She simply listened. "You're being transferred to Sentinel Group," he continued. "Classified operations, smaller teams, higher trust. They requested you by name." That last sentence lingered. Requested her. By name. Real viewers only. Comment yes or no. I want to see who's actually paying attention. Not because she was broken. Not because she survived. Because she performed, cleanly, efficiently, with the restraint of someone who understood that truth didn't need noise to make an impact. Her jaw tightened slightly, the closest she came to an emotional reaction. "When do I leave?" she asked. "Now," he said, "transport is waiting." No ceremony. No send-off. Just movement forward. The military way. He offered her a small folder, thin, worn at the edges, her new orders, her new path. Voss, he added quietly as she took it, not many people could have walked through what you did and stayed this focused. She met his eyes, not with gratitude, not with pride, but with clarity. I wasn't forged to break, sir, she said. Good, he replied. Sentinel doesn't take people who break. He walked away, leaving her in the quiet morning light. Her duffel was small, it always was. She carried only what mattered, equipment that worked, items with purpose, and one folded photo tucked deep inside a side pocket. Her squad from years ago, back when she was younger, unscarred, still learning the limits of her own resilience. She slipped it inside without opening it. Some memories weren't for revisiting. They were for anchoring. As she moved toward the waiting vehicle, a few soldiers paused to watch her pass. Their expressions were different now, not pity, not uncertainty. Recognition. A kind of silent respect, reserved for those who had been tested and come out sharper. Quick challenge, describe this moment in one emoji. Let's see what you pick. Fire. One young recruit, the same one who'd asked her about the hammer, stood at attention as she approached. His voice cracked slightly when he spoke. Ma'am, is it true what you said about steel? She stopped in front of him, her shadow crossing his boots. It is, she said softly, and it's true about people too. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. Does the fire ever stop hurting? Her answer came without hesitation. No, she said, but you stop fearing it. He nodded, eyes glassy, absorbing every syllable. She rested a hand on his shoulder, brief but grounding. Just remember, she said, the forge doesn't make you perfect, it makes you ready. Then she stepped back, saluted him with quiet precision, and walked away. The transport aircraft waited with its ramp down, engine humming like a distant storm. As she ascended, the morning wind caught her collar, lifting it slightly, the only gesture nature needed to make. Inside, the cabin was dim, lit by strips of soft amber light. A few figures sat strapped in, their faces unreadable, their uniforms marked with insignias she recognized only from classified briefings. Sentinel. These weren't soldiers who needed explanations. These were soldiers who understood silence. As she took her seat, one of them, a woman with sharp eyes and a scar running across her knuckles, looked at her and gave a single nod. Not curiosity. Not greeting. Acknowledgement. The engines roared to life. The aircraft vibrated as it prepared for takeoff. Voss leaned back in the seat, shut her eyes for a moment, and breathed in the smell of metal and fuel, the familiar scent of movement, of new chapters, of sharpened purpose. As the aircraft lifted into the sky, the base shrank below her, hangars and runways turning small and distant. But she didn't look down. I'm watching your comments right now. Tell me, should I continue the story or stop here? She wasn't leaving anything behind. She was carrying everything forward. Every blow, every silence, every scar, every truth. Not as weight, as structure. As the aircraft broke through the clouds into open sky, she opened her eyes. There was no fear, no regret, just clarity. You don't become unbreakable by avoiding the fire. You become unbreakable by walking through it and knowing, deep in your bones,